Hi everyone, my name is Jacqueline Harvey and I'm a children's author. I'm also an ambassador for Dymocks Children's Charities, and today I thought it would be fun. I love reading aloud. It's one of my favourite things to do. When I was a teacher for a long time, reading aloud was something that I did with my classes every single day, and I thought I would read aloud a story that I wrote a little while ago now. I wrote this story and it's quite a fun story. I tell it quite often when I go to schools because it's actually a true story. And often the best stories are the true stories because they're the ones that you think, wow, did that really happen? Yes, it did. This story is about a dog. We had some lovely animals when I was a child growing up, and this one was probably my favourite and my least favourite at the same time. She was the kind of dog that you loved until you didn't love her, and then you loved her again. So I'll read the story. It comes from a book called Dog Stories, and the name of the story is Suzie the Wonderdog. Have you ever been the new kid at school? I mean the new kid when there were no other new kids that day. I have, and it was terrifying. You see, up until this point in my life, I'd had some pretty scary teachers. No, that's not true. For the first half of year 4, I had the scariest teacher in the whole of Australia. He was taller than the doorframe. He was meaner than the snarling dog with the huge fangs that lived on the corner of our road, and I'm pretty sure he ate children for lunch. Well, I was really sure about that after Douglas Goldsworthy disappeared one lunchtime and never came back. So the idea of a new teacher who might be even meaner than him made my knees knock and my teeth chatter. Mum said it would be all right, but she'd said that about the last school and she'd been wrong. On that dreaded Tuesday in August, I was to walk to the new school with my mother and my 2 younger sisters. Sarah was going into year 1 and she was pretty excited about that. That's because she'd never had the scariest teacher in Australia and was still too young to realise how bad it could be. Natalie was just along for the ride in her stroller. Because we had no fences at our new house, Mum had to tie our beautiful black Labrador called Suzie to the only thing that was concreted into the backyard, the clothesline. She told Suzie she wouldn't be long and the 4 of us set off. As we walked through the school gate, my stomach did a back flip and then a front flip too. We took Sarah to her year 1 classroom, then walked up a long flight of steps to the year 4 locker room where my teacher was there waiting to meet me. With one look, I knew there was no way someone as pretty and lovely and friendly as Miss Ryder could be anywhere close to the scariest teacher in Australia. It took no time at all to realise that she was clever and funny too. Inside the classroom, though, there were a few kids who seemed overly excited to have a new student starting. There was this one kid, let's just call him Baboon Boy, who thought it was funny to make farting noises under his arm and yell out, "Hey everyone, there's a new girl, check out the new girl." Now, if you've ever been the only new kid, I think you'll agree that the last thing you want to happen is for everyone to be checking you out. I prayed to become invisible at that moment. Little did I know that things were about to get so much worse. You see, just as we were about to go into the classroom, I felt something wet on the back of my leg. It was followed by a panting sound. I turned around and there she was. "Suzie!" I exclaimed in horror. "What are you doing here?" My little sister clapped her hands and shouted gleefully, "Suzie!" You're probably wondering why I was so upset about Suzie being there. Well, despite the fact that she had been the cutest puppy I'd ever seen, with huge brown eyes, that sweet puppy smell and giant paws that she was yet to grow into, the grown-up version of Suzie was trouble with a capital T. I'm sure you're thinking Labradors are incredibly intelligent creatures. They work as guide dogs and assistance dogs. Ours, unfortunately, developed other talents, namely escapology and garbology, with a healthy dose of fartology thrown in for good measure. She was without a doubt the greatest canine escape artist of all time. Life was never dull with Suzie about. Our dad liked to call her Suzie the Wonderdog, but that had nothing to do with her incredible talent. He said it was a wonder he hadn't dropped her off at the pound or given her away. Every time he threatened to do just that, me and my sisters would beg him not to and promise to clean up after her, which we did, and it was gross. Garbage night was the worst, because Suzie would somehow get into the neighbours' bins. She'd knock them over, drag out the bin bags, hefting and heaving them all the way home. We'd know she'd been at it as soon as Dad put up the blinds and shouted, "You dirty dog!" at the top of his lungs. We would run out of the house in our pyjamas and dressing gowns to find tin cans and empty bottles and dirty nappies strewn all over our front lawn. She was a nightmare. But then she'd look at you with those big brown eyes, wag that windscreen wiper tail and whimper, and all would be forgiven. She was bad, she was good, she was cute, she was mad, but best of all, she was ours, and we loved her to bits. But right now, standing in that locker room, I would have happily taken her to the pound myself. Suzie was now collarless and wagging her tail on high speed. She looked like she was saying, "Hey Mum, hey sisters, look, aren't I clever for finding you? Aren't I amazing? You love me, don't you?" "No, I don't love you," I whispered under my breath. Sweet Miss Ryder came to the rescue. She suggested we leave Suzie in the locker room while Mum and my baby sister helped me unpack my things into my desk. Afterwards, Mum could take Suzie home. Good idea? Not. When is it ever a good idea to leave a Labrador, especially one with the dual skill set of escapology and garbology, in a locker room by itself? That would be never. I set up my desk, aware that 26 pairs of eyes were staring at me, then walked out to say goodbye to my mum and baby sister. The second I stepped into the locker room, I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. Suzie had done something despicable. No, it wasn't a piddle or a number 2, but on the scale of doggy destruction, this was right up there. I gasped. Mum gasped. Miss Ryder gasped. Baboon Boy clearly had a nose for trouble. His head appeared around the doorway. "Look," he declared. "The new girl's dog's eaten everyone's lunch. We're all going to starve." And there you have it. Suzie the Wonderdog had outdone herself this time. The evidence was still hanging out of her mouth, a half-eaten Vegemite sandwich covered in manky, drool-soaked plastic wrap. There were biscuits and sandwiches and even a cold sausage littered across the floor, and lots of plastic wrap. Suzie would go on to poop plastic wrap for a month afterwards. Everyone ran to the classroom door to have a look, and I was convinced they all hated me, even before I'd said a word. "It's all right," Miss Ryder said quietly. "It won't take a minute to get this cleaned up." Fortunately, my mum was a sensible soul. She announced that she would replace all the lunches Suzie had destroyed with orders at the tuck shop. "Awesome!" Baboon Boy yelled to the sounds of clapping and cheering from my classmates. "I'd like a pie and a sausage roll and an iced tea bun and a chocolate milk." Miss Ryder glared at the lad. "Sorry, Michael, your lunchbox looks to be in perfectly good order." "Aw," the boy groaned and slunk away. "Ripped off." So my classmates didn't hate me after all, and although I vowed not to talk to Suzie for the rest of the year, it didn't take long for that dreadful, lovable rascal of a dog to wheedle her way back into my good books. At least until the next garbage night. And there you have the story of Suzie the Wonderdog, and I can tell you that is all true. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.